Today, I'm going to talk about exactly how I would lose 30 pounds by summer based on my experience of losing almost 45 pounds over the last 2 years. These are going to be what I observed are the most important things for women who are trying to lose weight over 50 years old. If you're a woman over 50, you've probably noticed a lot of the advice on YouTube isn't working for you. It's also not what actually worked for me. Surprisingly, this is even true for the advice 50 plus weight loss channels are giving. I also need to mention I'm a 53-year-old woman who is short. I'm only 5 foot 2 inches, and most of the advice that is out there is geared toward the average woman who is usually taller than me. So we have to make sure that we're listening to weight loss advice that is based on our own specific needs. About 2 years ago, I found myself at 175 pounds. I saw a photo of myself that made me realize that I was more overweight than I had admitted. And when I saw that, I knew something had to change. So I embarked on a journey to lose those extra pounds, and I'm going to break down the advice into two groups. The reason is I'm talking to two different types of people trying to lose weight. The first person is a person who has to lose 30 or more pounds. And the second person is someone who's getting closer to their goal weight and is trying to lose 20 pounds or less. That is because what worked for my first 30 pounds was slightly different than what I had to do to lose the next 15 to 20. The first step is figuring out how many calories you need to eat. Now, many influencers are giving unhelpful information for those of us over 50. They are saying that you need to multiply your goal body weight by a certain number, for example, 12. For me, that would have been 1,584 calories. Now, I can tell you from my experience, I would never have lost weight at 1,600 calories per day. In fact, I was typically eating around 1,700 calories when I was up to 175. Being 5 foot 2, I'm definitely not going to be able to eat as much as a woman who's 5'7 or 5'8. My basal metabolic rate is just not going to be as high. A woman who is 5 foot 8 can get away with a lot more food and still lose weight. So when you're out at lunch with your tall friend, you're not imagining it, she really can eat more than you and stay thin. Because of that, I had to figure out exactly how many calories I needed to eat for me specifically. My advice to you is to skip the predetermined formulas. Instead, I would start out at around 1,200 calories, or if you know your BMR, reduce that by a couple hundred calories per day as a starting point. Then, you can fill out how hungry you are. See if you're able to maintain that level of calorie deficit. And also see if you're able to lose weight. If you're not losing weight, then you may have to pull back a little more each day. I recommend lowering your calories by 100 at a time. I have a 3-day rule. Monitor your progress every 3 days. If you're not losing a half a pound to a pound every 3 days, then you probably don't have your calories low enough. When I lost 10 pounds back in September, I was losing around 0.3 to 0.5 pounds per day. The second piece of advice you'll hear is to focus on protein and figure out exactly how much you need. The reason this didn't really work for me is that I didn't think a whole lot about how much protein I was eating. The only thing I focused on was eating low carbs. I made sure that my carbs were typically less than 20 grams per day. However, I could go as high as 50, but I found that I achieved great weight loss results at 20 grams or less. Between that and adhering to my calorie target, those were really the only two things that I needed to focus on in order to have consistent weight loss. For the first 30 pounds, which was pretty effortless, I primarily ate a higher fat diet. I would have things like a lot of cheese, meats like fatty hamburgers, sausage, eggs, mayonnaise, and a little bit of avocado. Really, anything that had a higher fat content worked well for me, and that 30 pounds came off fairly easily. It took me about a year and a half to lose that, but I didn't have to do a lot of restriction or worry about what I was eating as long as I kept the carbs low. When I got closer to my goal and started to plateau, I needed to change up my plan. I joined a group to lose 10 pounds in September. While in that group, I learned that I needed to eat around 850 to 900 calories to get the results that I wanted. I also had to give up some comfort foods that had a higher fat content, like creamer in my coffee. I had to give up about 3 cups of that per day just to bring my calories and fat down. I also had to give up cheese for about 3 weeks. During that time, I shifted from a higher fat diet to focusing more on protein for the main 3 meals in order to lose 10 pounds. Since then, I've been able to maintain my weight loss and have actually lost another 5 pounds while incorporating back some of my favorite foods. Another piece of advice often given by the gurus is to set a strict meal schedule. One problem I have with many weight loss videos is that they include so many rules to remember and keep track of. I like to keep things simple and focus on what works. When I was losing weight, I didn't really focus on what times of day I was eating. I focused on low carb, lower calories, eating mostly by hunger and fullness. When I was 50 pounds overweight, I didn't have to worry about cutting off my meals at a certain time as long as I stayed within my net carbs. As I got closer to my goal, the last 10 to 20 pounds, I did start cutting off my meal times around 6 p.m. In the beginning, that was hard because I would get hungry at night. But I found that drinking a lot of water helped reduce the intense hunger pains. To keep myself from struggling with nighttime cravings, I didn't keep tempting foods in the house. However, to keep from feeling restricted, I had a rule that if I really needed a treat, I could go out and get it as long as I didn't bring it into the house. This created friction between me and the temptation. After about a week, my body adjusted and I wasn't feeling as hungry at night anymore. In terms of how much water to drink, I mostly kept it to 2 large Stanley cups per day. I don't get overly concerned with downing a lot of water. I just try to drink when I'm thirsty. I try to eat when I'm hungry, staying in tune with my body. However, having a guideline of at least 2 bottles per day gave me an easy way to monitor. I would tend to get thirstier toward the end of the night and kept a water bottle by my bed so that I could sip on it if I woke up in the middle of the night and then go back to sleep. Regarding strength training, many gurus say you should lift weights 3 times per week. I think lifting is wonderful for building muscle and a toned body if you have time. But if you're like me, a busy mom, wife who works full-time, and I do YouTube, you may not have time to go to the gym 3 times per week. So I came up with a schedule that worked for me. I went to the gym once per week and lifted every body part. That was enough to continue losing weight without decreasing muscle mass. How do I know I didn't decrease muscle mass? Because I use the V-Sync scale that tracks my weight, body fat percentage, BMR, and muscle mass. Now keep in mind, you will naturally lose some muscle whenever you lose weight because your body doesn't need as much as you get smaller. That's okay, and it's normal. Let's talk about sleep. As women over 50, we really struggle with this. I noticed it was getting harder to sleep throughout the night, often waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning due to hormones. Once I was awake, my mind would just start racing with things that I needed to do the next day. This is not helpful for weight loss. Sleep is incredibly important. For example, when I'm tired, I have less willpower and find myself walking into the kitchen looking for a snack more often. Since I can't always control my sleep, I started prioritizing it during the day. If I get tired, I'll take a quick cat nap at lunch or an hour after work to recharge. For years, I would lay down in my car for 20 minutes in the middle of the day and I would wake up feeling revived and refreshed with much less food noise. Finally, let's talk about the 10,000 steps rule. That's what you'll hear over and over. And while I agree, walking is great exercise, you don't necessarily have to do it to lose weight. I would go for a half-hour walk at night for the first 30 pounds I lost. And as I got closer to my goal, I moved that to about an hour on a path my daughter and I created. I didn't focus on walking fast, I just went for a comfortable walk. But if you are someone who can't exercise, you can still lose weight without it. I had a friend in her 60s with arthritis. Her toes were curled up from it, and so she couldn't walk very far and was in a wheelchair most of the time. She started following a low-carb diet and reached 110 pounds from diet alone. You don't have to walk to lose weight, but if you want to be toned and fitter, you'll want to add in walking and weights. I also try to get in non-exercise activity like cleaning the house or decorating for the holidays. Those calories add up more than you think, and you'll feel so good when you're able to check those things off of your to-do list. Today, after 2 years, I'm down to 132 pounds, the lowest I've been since I was 26 years old. Now I can fit in my 16-year-old daughter's jeans, and it's fun to go shopping for clothes with her. These were the main things I focused on, and it is definitely worth it. If you'd like more motivation, I'm going to put my playlist here in the end screen that documented my entire weight loss journey.